Jake had always been the quiet type. At 28, he spent most of his days designing posters and websites from his laptop at Corner Cafe, a cozy little place that sold books and coffee. The smell of fresh coffee beans mixed with old paper created the perfect atmosphere for his creative work. He liked sitting at the same table every day, right by the window where he could watch people walk by. Sometimes his mind would wander, especially when he saw someone attractive. He couldn't help it. His imagination just ran wild. It was embarrassing, really. The things that popped into his head. He blushed and quickly looked back at his computer screen, hoping nobody could tell what he was thinking. That's when he first noticed her. She was probably in her mid-20s, with dark hair that fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She always ordered the same thing, a large coffee with extra sugar, and a blueberry muffin. What caught Jake's attention wasn't just how pretty she was, but the way she seemed to look at him. Every time his mind started wandering in her direction, she glanced over at him with this little smile. Not a friendly hello smile, but something different. Something that made him feel like she knew exactly what he was thinking. Jake told himself he was being paranoid. There was no way she could know what was going on in his head. But the timing was perfect. Every single time he had one of those embarrassing thoughts, she'd look right at him with that knowing expression. One Tuesday morning, Jake decided to test his theory. He deliberately let his mind wander while watching her read a book at her usual table. Within seconds, she looked up from her page and caught his eye. This time, instead of just smiling, she actually laughed, a soft, amused sound that made Jake's heart skip. That was weird, but maybe it was still just coincidence. The next day, Jake tried again. This time he thought something really specific and unusual. He imagined what it would be like if she walked over to his table and said something completely random about elephants wearing hats. It was such a ridiculous thought that he almost laughed at himself. But then she did something that made his blood run cold. She got up from her table, walked straight over to him, and said, "You know, I've always wondered why elephants don't wear hats more often. They have such big heads for them." Jake's laptop almost slipped off his lap. He stared at her with his mouth open, unable to form any words. She was standing right next to his table, coffee cup in hand, looking down at him with that same mysterious smile. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" Jake managed to whisper, "Oh, just thinking out loud about elephants and fashion choices," she said casually, as if discussing the weather. "Mind if I sit down? I'm Lisa, by the way." Jake nodded, still too shocked to speak properly. Lisa settled into the chair across from him, and he noticed how her eyes seemed to sparkle with some private joke. "You're Jake, right? You're here every day working on your design projects. I've seen your work on your screen. It's really good." "Thank you," Jake said, finding his voice again. "But about the elephant thing." Lisa took a sip of her coffee and leaned back in her chair. "What about it? That was exactly what I was thinking about, was it?" Lisa asked, but her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Jake felt his face getting hot. "This is going to sound crazy, but I think you can read my mind." Instead of laughing at him or calling him nuts, Lisa just tilted her head and studied his face carefully. "What makes you think that?" "Because every time I think something inappropriate or weird, you look at me like you know exactly what's going on in my head. And just now, with the elephant thing, there's no way that was a coincidence." Lisa was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee with a small spoon. The cafe buzzed with normal morning activity around them, people ordering drinks, pages turning, keyboards clicking. But at their table, the air felt charged with something unusual. "Let's say, hypothetically, that you're right," Lisa said slowly. "What would you do about it?" Jake's mind raced. If she really could read his thoughts, then she knew about all those embarrassing moments when his imagination got the better of him. She knew about every inappropriate thought he'd ever had about her, and about other people too. He should be mortified, should probably run away and never come back to this cafe again. But instead, he found himself curious. "If you really can read minds, then you know what I've been thinking about you?" Lisa nodded. "I do. And you're not disgusted or angry? No, Lisa said. And for the first time, her smile looked genuine. Rather than mysterious, actually, I find it refreshing. Refreshing? Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Most people's thoughts are pretty boring, or really dark and depressing. But yours are creative, imaginative, even when they're inappropriate. They're never mean or cruel. They're just human. Jake felt like he was in some kind of dream. So you really can read minds. Lisa looked around the cafe, making sure no one was listening to their conversation. Then she leaned forward and spoke quietly. I've been able to do it since I was a kid. Usually, it's more of a curse than a gift, but with you, it's different. Your thoughts don't make me want to run away. I don't understand. Most people think terrible things about each other. Really awful stuff, but your worst thoughts are just silly fantasies. When you look at me and your mind starts wandering, you're not thinking about hurting me or using me. You're just appreciating. Jake felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. I'm really sorry about that. I try to control it, but sometimes my brain just goes places. Don't apologize, Lisa said firmly. Do you know how rare it is for me to meet someone whose thoughts don't make me feel sick? You have no idea what a relief it is to sit here and not be overwhelmed by horrible things. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing this strange new reality. Jake had dozens of questions, but he didn't know where to start. So what happens now? He finally asked. Lisa finished her coffee and stood up. Now, I go to my psychology class, and you go back to your design work. But tomorrow, if you want, we could have coffee together, and maybe you could stop feeling so embarrassed about your thoughts. I actually enjoy them. She walked away, leaving Jake sitting at his table with his mind spinning. He couldn't focus on work for the rest of the day. Every few minutes, he'd remember what had just happened and wonder if he'd imagined the whole thing. But he hadn't imagined it. Lisa really could read his mind, and somehow, impossibly, she liked what she found there. It was the strangest thing that had ever happened to him, and he couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the conversation with Lisa over and over in his mind. By morning, he convinced himself that maybe he was losing his grip on reality. People couldn't actually read minds, right? That was just something from movies and books. But when he walked into Corner Cafe the next day, Lisa was already there at her usual table, reading a thick psychology textbook. She looked up when he entered and waved him over. Good morning, Jake. You look tired. Couldn't sleep? Jake froze. Halfway to his table, he hadn't told her his name yesterday, and he definitely hadn't mentioned anything about not sleeping. How did you know I couldn't sleep? He asked, settling into the chair across from her. Lisa closed her book and smiled. Lucky guess. Plus, you have that look people get when they've been up all night thinking about something. Or you read my mind the second I walked in here? Maybe, Lisa said, not denying it. Want to find out for sure? Jake nodded, his heart pounding. How? Think of a number between 1 and 1,000. Something random that I could never guess. Jake thought for a moment, then picked the number 743. It was completely random, chosen because it was his old apartment number from college. 743, Lisa said immediately. Your old apartment number, right? Jake's coffee cup clattered against the table as he set it down. Too hard. Okay, that's impossible. I know it seems impossible. Trust me. I've spent my whole life wishing it was impossible. What do you mean? Lisa looked around the cafe, then leaned forward and lowered her voice. Imagine hearing everyone's thoughts all the time. Every person you pass on the street, every classmate, every coworker. You hear their judgments, their fears, their anger, their sadness. You know when people are lying to you, when they're talking about you behind your back, when they're planning to hurt someone. Jake tried to imagine what that would be like. That sounds awful. It is. I've never been able to have a normal relationship because I always know what people are really thinking about me. I hear their doubts, their complaints, their fantasies about other people. It's like having a constant headache that never goes away. But you said my thoughts are different? Lisa's expression softened. They are. when I listen to your mind. It's like hearing music instead of noise. Your thoughts are colorful and creative. Even when they're inappropriate, they're never cruel or violent. They're just playful. Jake felt his cheeks getting warm. I'm still embarrassed about those thoughts. Don't be. Do you know what most men think when they look at me? They think about taking, about using, about controlling. But you think about making me smile, about what would make me happy. Even your most inappropriate thoughts are gentle. This was the weirdest conversation Jake had ever had in his life. So you've been able to do this since you were a kid? Since I was 7. It started small, just knowing when my mom was upset even when she was pretending to be fine. Then it got stronger. By high school, I could hear full conversations in people's heads. College was a nightmare until I learned to block most of it out. How do you block it? Meditation, concentration exercises, sometimes just loud music. But it's exhausting. It's like trying to ignore a room full of people all talking at once. Jake watched Lisa's face as she spoke, for the first time since he met her. She looked tired and vulnerable instead of mysterious and confident. That's why you study psychology. I'm hoping to understand it better. Maybe help other people who might have similar experiences. I can't be the only one, right? I don't know. I've never met anyone like you, Lisa laughed, but it sounded sad. Most people would run away if they knew what I could do. They'd think I was crazy, or dangerous, or they'd be afraid of what I might discover about them. But you told me, because your thoughts told me I could trust you. Most people have dark corners in their minds, secrets they're ashamed of. But you're exactly who you appear to be. You're kind, you're honest, and you're not afraid to be a little silly. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. I've never thought of myself as particularly special. That's part of what makes you special. You don't realize how rare it is to meet someone whose thoughts match their actions. They sat quietly for a moment, both processing this strange new reality. Jake had dozens of questions, but he could see that talking about her ability was emotionally draining for Lisa. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Of course, yesterday. You said you enjoyed my thoughts. What did you mean by that? Lisa's cheeks turned pink. I meant that for the first time in my life. I don't mind having someone's thoughts in my head. Usually, I'm desperate for silence, for peace. But with you, it's different. Your mind is like a safe place. A safe place? When I'm around you, I don't feel overwhelmed or anxious. Your thoughts are like a warm blanket instead of a cold wind. Jake didn't know what to say to that. He never thought of his scattered, often embarrassing thoughts as something that could comfort someone. So what happens now? He asked, echoing his question from the day before. Lisa looked at him seriously. That depends on you. Are you okay with dating someone who can read your mind? Because I should warn you, I'll always know when you're lying, when you're angry, when you're thinking about other women. Most people can't handle that level of honesty. Jake considered this. It was probably the most unusual relationship proposition he'd ever received. But as he looked at Lisa's hopeful, nervous expression, he realized that he didn't want to walk away. I think I'd like to try, he said. But I have one condition. What's that? You have to promise to tell me if my thoughts ever bother you or make you uncomfortable. This has to work both ways. Lisa's face lit up with the first genuinely happy smile he'd ever seen from her. I promise. And Jake, yeah, thank you for not running away. Thank you for trusting me with your secret. As they finished their coffee, Jake realized that his life had just taken a completely unexpected turn. He was about to start dating a mind reader, and somehow, that felt like the most natural thing in the world. 3 weeks had passed since Jake and Lisa decided to give their unusual relationship a try. It had been the strangest 3 weeks of Jake's life, but also some of the happiest. They developed their own unique way of communicating that was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. At first, Jake had been constantly worried about what he was thinking. He'd catch himself having a random thought about pizza or wondering if his shoes were too tight, and then panic that Lisa might find it annoying. But she quickly put him at ease. Your mind is like a radio station that plays really interesting music, she told him one afternoon as they walked through the park. Even when you're thinking about mundane things, it's never boring. You have this way of making ordinary thoughts feel special. Jake was learning to appreciate this strange gift they shared. Sometimes Lisa would start laughing at something he hadn't said out loud, and he'd realize she was responding to one of his internal jokes. Other times, she'd answer questions he hadn't even asked yet. It's like having a conversation with someone who already knows what you're going to say. Jake explained to his best friend Danny over lunch, of course. He couldn't tell Danny the real reason why his new girlfriend seemed so in tune with him. That sounds either really amazing or really terrifying, Danny said, taking a bite of his sandwich. Both, Jake admitted, but mostly amazing. The hardest part was learning to navigate social situations. When they went out with friends or to parties, Lisa would get overwhelmed by all the thoughts around her. Jake learned to recognize the signs. She'd get quiet, her smile would become forced, and she'd start fidgeting with her hands. "I need some air," she'd whisper. And Jake would make excuses for them to step outside or find a quieter spot. One evening, they were at a restaurant with some of Jake's co-workers. When Lisa suddenly went pale, she excused herself to the bathroom, and Jake followed a few minutes later, finding her splashing water on her face. "What happened?" he asked, concerned. "The man at the table behind us," Lisa said quietly. "He's planning to break up with his girlfriend tomorrow. But he's sitting there pretending everything is fine. The girlfriend is talking about their vacation plans, and all he can think about is how he's going to hurt her." Jake felt his stomach twist. "That's awful." "It is. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't warn her. I can't tell him to be honest. I just have to sit there and listen to both of their thoughts, knowing what's coming." This was the hardest part of Lisa's gift, the helplessness that came with knowing things she couldn't change. Jake had started to understand why she'd seemed so sad and tired when he first met her. "How do you deal with it?" he asked. "I try to focus on your thoughts instead," Lisa said, managing a small smile. "They're like a safe harbor in a storm." Jake pulled her into a hug, wishing he could somehow share the burden she carried. "I'm sorry you have to go through this. It's not your fault, and honestly, it's gotten easier since I've been with you. Before, I felt like I was drowning in other people's thoughts. Now I have something good to hold onto." They had also developed some interesting ways to communicate privately in crowded places. Jake would think messages to Lisa instead of whispering them. It was like having their own secret language. "The woman behind you is about to spill her drink," Lisa said one day at a coffee shop. Speaking normally, Jake had thought, "Should I warn her?" Lisa shook her head slightly. "She'll notice." In 3, 2, 1. Sure enough, the woman turned around just in time to catch her cup before it fell off the table. "How did you know that?" Jake thought she was thinking about reaching for her purse. "But I could tell she forgot about the drink," Lisa answered, out loud, as if they were having a normal conversation. Other people probably thought they were a bit odd, finishing each other's sentences and having conversations that seemed to jump around randomly, but Jake found it fascinating. He never felt so connected to another person. The romantic aspect of their relationship was developing too, though it came with its own unique challenges. Jake had never been with someone who knew exactly what he was thinking and feeling at every moment. There was no hiding his nervousness, his excitement, or his growing feelings for her. "I can tell you're overthinking this," Lisa said one evening, as they sat on her couch watching a movie. Jake had been wondering if he should put his arm around her. "Sorry," he said, feeling his face get hot. "Don't be sorry. Just do what feels natural. I already know you want to, and I want you to as well." It was liberating, in a way. Jake had never been in a relationship where he didn't have to guess what the other person was thinking or feeling. Lisa always knew when he was worried about something, when he was happy, when he wanted to be closer to her. This is either the most honest relationship in the world or the most complicated, Jake said one night as they lay in bed together. "Both," Lisa replied, echoing his words from weeks earlier. "But I wouldn't change it." Jake was discovering that being with Lisa was changing him too. He was becoming more aware of his own thoughts, more intentional about what he focused on. He found himself thinking more positively, more creatively, because he knew she was listening. "You're becoming a better person," Lisa told him one morning over breakfast. "Not that you weren't good before, but you're more mindful now, more present. Is that a good thing? It's a wonderful thing. Most people go through life on autopilot, barely paying attention to their own thoughts, but you're really living in your mind now, making conscious choices about what you think about." Jake realized she was right. He was paying more attention to his thoughts, treating them like a gift he was giving to someone he cared about. It was making him more thoughtful, more considerate, more aware of the world around him. "I never thought about it that way," he said. "Your thoughts are beautiful, Jake. They're kind and funny and creative. Being able to share them with someone who appreciates them is changing both of us." As Jake looked at Lisa across the breakfast table, her hair messy from sleep and her eyes bright with affection, he realized he was falling in love with her, not just because of her unique ability, but because of who she was as a person. She was brave, dealing with a gift that could easily be a curse. She was kind, finding beauty in his scattered thoughts. And she was trusting him with the most intimate part of herself. "I love you," he thought, not meaning to share it so directly. Lisa's face lit up with joy. "I love you too," she said out loud, and in that moment, Jake knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their unusual relationship was becoming something beautiful, something neither of them had expected to find. 2 months into their relationship, Jake and Lisa faced their biggest challenge yet. It started on a Tuesday morning when Lisa arrived at the cafe looking shaken and pale. Jake could tell something was seriously wrong before she even sat down. "What happened?" he asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I heard something yesterday that I can't stop thinking about," Lisa said quietly. "Someone at my university is planning to hurt people." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "There's a guy in my advanced psychology class, Tyler. He sits a few seats behind me, and yesterday I accidentally picked up his thoughts. He's been planning some kind of attack on campus. He has detailed thoughts about hurting students and professors." "Oh my God, Lisa. Did you report it? How can I report it? What am I supposed to say? That I can read minds and hurt him thinking about it? They'll think I'm crazy." Jake could see the frustration and fear in her eyes. This was exactly the kind of situation that made her ability feel like a curse instead of a gift. "But if people are endangered, I know," Lisa said, her voice rising slightly before she caught herself and lowered it again. "I've been awake all night thinking about this. If I don't say anything and something happens, it's partly my fault. But if I do say something, I'll expose my secret and probably ruin my life." Jake squeezed her hand. "There has to be a way to handle this. I've been thinking about that too. Maybe I could make an anonymous tip, but what would I say? That Tyler seems unstable. That's not enough to stop him." Over the next few days, the situation consumed both of them. Lisa was constantly on edge, monitoring Tyler's thoughts whenever she was in class with him. She discovered that he was planning to act the following Monday, which gave them less than a week to figure out what to do. "His thoughts are getting darker," Lisa told Jake on Friday night as they sat in her apartment. "He's finalizing his plans. I can see exactly what he's going to do, and it's horrible." Jake had never seen Lisa this distressed. The weight of knowing something terrible was going to happen, but being unable to prevent it easily, was destroying her peace of mind. "What if we found another way to expose him?" Jake suggested. "Maybe we could find evidence of his plans that doesn't involve your ability." "Like what? Does he write about these thoughts? Keep journals? Search for things online that would be suspicious?" Lisa's eyes lit up slightly. "Actually, yes. I can see in his thoughts that he's been researching things online and writing in a notebook. But how will we access any of that? We can't break into his room or hack his computer," Jake said. "But maybe we could find a way to make other people notice his behavior." They spent the weekend brainstorming ideas. Finally, Lisa came up with a plan that might work. "What if I went to my professor and said I was worried about Tyler's mental state? I could say he's been acting strange in class, making concerning comments, seeming agitated. It's not specific enough to be unbelievable, but it might prompt them to look into it. That could work, Jake agreed, especially if you suggest they check his recent work or online activity. On Monday morning, Lisa went to Dr. Peterson, her psychology professor, before class started. "I'm concerned about one of the students in our advanced class," she said carefully. "Tyler has been acting really strange lately. He makes these dark comments under his breath, and he seems really angry all the time. I'm probably overreacting, but something feels off about him." Dr. Peterson took her concerns seriously. "Can you give me any specific examples?" Lisa had prepared for this question. Last week he muttered something about how people would pay for ignoring him, and he's been writing furiously in a notebook during lectures, but it doesn't seem like he's taking notes about the class material. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention," Dr. Peterson said. "I'll speak with the administration about it." What happened next moved faster than either Jake or Lisa had expected. The university took the report seriously enough to conduct a welfare check on Tyler. When they searched his room, they found exactly what Lisa had seen in his thoughts: detailed plans for an attack, weapons, and evidence of his research into campus security. Tyler was arrested that afternoon, just hours before he had planned to carry out his attack. The news spread quickly through the university. Students were relieved and grateful that a potential tragedy had been prevented. But Jake and Lisa knew the real story: you saved lives. Jake told her that evening as they sat together on her couch, both emotionally drained from the day's events. "We saved lives," Lisa corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you helping me figure out how to handle it." "How do you feel about it?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment, relieved, exhausted, and for the first time, grateful for this ability. "I've always seen it as a burden, but today it saved people. Maybe this is why you have it." Jake suggested gently, "Maybe you're supposed to use it to help people. Maybe. But I can't go around reporting everyone whose thoughts I don't like. Most people think terrible things sometimes without acting on them. But when it's something this serious, when it's something this serious, I have to find a way to act." The experience changed both of them. Lisa began to see her ability differently, not just as a curse that isolated her from others, but as a responsibility that came with difficult choices. She started researching ways she might be able to help people professionally, perhaps working with law enforcement or in crisis intervention. Jake found himself thinking more about the ethical implications of the relationship. Was it fair for him to benefit from Lisa's gift when she had to carry such a heavy burden? How could he support her when she faced impossible decisions like this one? "I want to help you figure out how to use this ability in a positive way," he told her one night. "Maybe we can research others who might have similar experiences. Maybe there are ways to use telepathy to help people that we haven't thought of." "Yet, you really want to be part of this?" Lisa asked. "It's not going to be easy. There will be more situations like this one." "I want to be part of your life," Jake said simply. "All of it, the beautiful parts and the difficult parts." As they held each other that night, both Jake and Lisa knew their relationship had entered a new phase. They were no longer just two people who had found an unusual way to connect. They were partners facing the complex realities of living, with an extraordinary ability in an ordinary world. The Tyler incident had shown them that Lisa's gift came with responsibilities they were only beginning to understand. But it had also shown them that together, they could handle whatever challenges came their way. 6 months later, Jake and Lisa had settled into a rhythm that worked for both of them. The crisis with Tyler had been a turning point, helping Lisa understand that her ability could be used for good, even when it came with difficult moral choices. Lisa had started volunteering at a crisis counseling center, where she could use her gift to help people who were struggling with thoughts of self-harm or violence. She couldn't read minds through the phone, but when people came in for face-to-face counseling, she could sense when they weren't telling the whole truth about their intentions. "I saved 3 people this month," she told Jake one evening as they cooked dinner together. 3 people who were planning to hurt themselves but weren't ready to admit it. "Because I could hear their real thoughts, I knew how serious the situation was and could get them the help they needed." Jake felt proud watching Lisa find purpose in her unique gift. She was no longer the sad, overwhelmed woman he met at the cafe. She was confident, purposeful, and genuinely happy. "How do you do it without exposing your secret?" he asked, stirring the pasta sauce. "I've gotten really good at asking the right questions," Lisa said. "When I can hear what someone is really thinking, I know exactly what to ask to get them to open up naturally. To them, it just seems like I'm really intuitive." Jake had found his own way to contribute to their unusual life. He'd started designing websites and materials for mental health organizations, using his skills to help spread awareness about suicide prevention and crisis intervention. It felt good to be part of something bigger than himself. "My boss asked me today if I'd be interested in joining a team that creates educational materials about recognizing mental health crises," Jake said. "Apparently, my recent work has been really insightful." "That's amazing," Lisa said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Look at us, becoming a crime-fighting duo. Is that what we are? More like a life-saving duo. Much better than crime-fighting." Their personal relationship had deepened too. The complete honesty that came with Lisa's ability had created a level of intimacy that most couples never experienced. There were no secrets between them, no wondering what the other person was really thinking or feeling. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to date someone whose thoughts I couldn't hear," Lisa mused one lazy Sunday morning as they lay in bed together. "Do you think you'd want that?" Jake asked. "No," Lisa said without hesitation. "I love this. I love knowing exactly how much you care about me, exactly what makes you happy, exactly what you're worried about. I love that I never have to guess or wonder, even when my thoughts are embarrassing or silly, especially then. Your silly thoughts are my favorite part of your mind." Jake had learned to appreciate the unique aspects of their relationship too. He'd never been with someone who knew him so completely, who accepted every part of his personality, including the parts he was ashamed of. "You know what's funny?" he said, playing with Lisa's hair. "I used to be so worried about people judging my thoughts, but being with you has made me realize that my thoughts aren't actually that bad. You've helped me be less hard on myself. Your thoughts are wonderful, Jake. They're creative and kind and funny. I wish everyone could see their own thoughts the way I see yours." They'd also found ways to use their unique communication style for practical purposes. In crowded places, they could have entire conversations without speaking. During movies, Lisa would share Jake's reactions, and he'd think comments that made her laugh silently. "The couple behind us is having a fight about what to watch next," Lisa whispered during a movie one evening. "Should we suggest something?" Jake thought. "She wants a romantic comedy. He wants an action movie. They're going to compromise on a thriller." "How do you know that?" "Because she just thought that thrillers are a good middle ground." And he's starting to think the same thing. Sure enough, when the movie ended, they heard the couple behind them agreeing to watch a thriller next. Jake had also learned to help Lisa when her ability became overwhelming. He developed a talent for creating mental safe spaces for her by focusing his thoughts on peaceful, happy memories when she was stressed. "Think about the beach," Lisa would whisper when they were in crowded places and she was getting overwhelmed by other people's thoughts. Jake would immediately shift his mind to memories of their weekend trips to the coast, and Lisa would focus on his peaceful thoughts instead of the chaos around them. "You're like a mental oasis," she told him once, "when everything else is noise and confusion. Your thoughts are like a quiet garden I can rest in." Their relationship had also helped Lisa's family understand her better. She finally told her parents about her ability, and while they struggled to believe it at first, having Jake there to support her story had helped. "Jake's thoughts confirmed everything I told them," Lisa explained after a difficult conversation with her parents. "When they saw how naturally we communicated, how I could respond to things he hadn't said out loud, they started to understand that I wasn't making it up." "How do they feel about it now?" "They're worried, but also relieved. They always knew something was different about me, and now they understand why I was such a difficult child, why I was always upset about things they couldn't see." As they sat in their favorite spot at Corner Cafe one year after they'd first met, Jake reflected on how much their lives had changed. "Do you ever miss having privacy in your thoughts?" Lisa asked. as if reading his mind, which, of course, she was. Sometimes, Jake admitted, but not often. The benefits outweigh the drawbacks. What benefits? Never having to guess how you're feeling. Never wondering if you really love me or if you're just saying it. Never worrying that you're lying to me or hiding something important. Complete honesty isn't always comfortable, but it's worth it. Lisa smiled and reached across the table to take his hand. I love you, Jake. Not because I can read your thoughts, but because of what those thoughts show me about who you are. I love you too, all of you, including the parts that make our relationship completely impossible to explain to other people. They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by the familiar sounds of the cafe where their story had begun. Other customers came and went, having normal conversations about normal things, unaware that they were sitting near a couple who shared one of the most extraordinary connections imaginable. So what happens next? Jake asked, echoing the question that had started their journey together. Next, we keep building this beautiful, weird, impossible life together, Lisa said. And we help as many people as we can along the way, Jake. Couldn't think of anything he wanted more. Their love story wasn't conventional, but it was theirs, and it was perfect.